My mom told my boyfriend at Christmas dinner that she thought I was wasting my potential. She said it in the middle of the meal between the rolls and the main course, while my boyfriend was sitting 2 feet away from her and had nowhere to go. She said, "I just worry that Jade is not living up to what she could be doing." She said this to him as though I were not at the table. She said it in the tone she uses when she believes she is expressing concern rather than criticism. She said, "She has always been so gifted and I just wonder sometimes." I am a ceramic artist. I want to say something about what the 6 years of marketing had been, and about what the decision to leave it had required, and about why I am certain the decision had been correct. I had been good at marketing. This is an important part of the story because it means I had not left from failure. I had left from the specific knowledge that the best version of my working life was not going to be produced by the context I was in. Marketing had given me structure, income, professional relationships, the specific confidence that comes from doing a thing well for a sustained period. It had not given me the thing that the ceramics gave me. The ceramics gave me the specific experience of making something that existed only because I had made it, and that carried specifically my way of seeing in its form. This is not something that marketing can give you. Marketing can give you good problems and useful skills, and the satisfaction of effective work. It cannot give you the object that did not exist before you touched the clay. I had known the difference by the 4th year. By the 6th year I had known what the evenings and weekends had been telling me. They had been telling me that the ceramics were what I was for. I had listened. I had made the plan. I had left. I also want to say something about what the specific decision to leave marketing had required practically, and about the planning that had preceded it, and about why the decision had been a prepared decision rather than an impulsive one. I had been planning the transition for 18 months before I had made it. I had saved specifically for the transition, 18 months of contributing a specific portion of each paycheck to a fund that had been designated for the first year of the ceramics practice. I had researched studio spaces and kiln options, and the economics of the gallery relationship model before I had left. I had talked to 3 other ceramic artists who had made similar transitions and had listened to what they had needed to know that they had not known. The plan had been specific and had been tested against the reality of people who had already done it. My mother had not been present for the 18 months of planning. She had been present for the announcement. The announcement had been the thing she had responded to, and the announcement had not contained the 18 months. I had not given her the 18 months because I had known she would try to influence the plan during its formation. I had needed to form it without that influence. I had formed it. I had then executed it. The execution had been the plan. The plan had been the 18 months. The announcement had been the end of the plan. She had seen the announcement. She had not seen the 18 months. This is the specific gap between what my mother had understood about my choice and what the choice had actually been. The January conversation had begun to close the gap. Easter at the studio had continued to close it. The gap has not fully closed. It is smaller than it was. The closing is ongoing. I am patient with the pace of it. The announcement had been the beginning for her. For me it had been the end of an 18-month preparation. The 2 of us had been in different places in the same conversation. I had known this at the time and had not known what to do with it. Now I know, you cannot give someone the 18 months in the announcement. The studio is the way you give it. The studio had given her more of the 18 months than anything else could have. She had needed to stand in it, making ceramics full-time for 4 years. Before that I worked in marketing for 6 years, and I made ceramics on evenings and weekends, and I kept making them until the evenings and weekends were not enough space for what the work was becoming. I left marketing with a plan and with savings and with the specific knowledge that the plan was not guaranteed, but that the alternative, the continuation of the marketing career at the expense of the ceramics, had also been a cost I was no longer willing to pay. I have been making ceramics full-time for 4 years. I have a studio. I sell through my website and through 2 galleries and through commissions that have been coming more regularly in the last 18 months. I am not a person who does not know what she is doing. I am a person who made a choice that my mother has not been willing to accept as a real choice. The specific dynamic that had produced I want to say something about what the 2 gallery relationships had required to build, and about what the growing commission work had required, and about why both had been the specific kind of professional achievement that is invisible to someone who has not done it. The first gallery relationship had come in year 2. I had brought my portfolio to 4 galleries before the first one had said yes, and the yes had been conditional on a specific number of pieces at a specific quality level at a specific delivery schedule. I had met the conditions. The relationship had grown from there. The second gallery had come in year 3 through a referral from the first. The commission work had started in year 3 with 2 commissions and had grown to 11 in year 4. Each commission had required the specific work of understanding what a person wanted an object to do in their space, and then making the object that did that. This is not simple work. It is the work of someone who has developed a specific technical capacity and who can apply that capacity in response to a brief. My mother had come to 2 gallery shows. She had seen the objects. She had not seen the galleries choosing to carry them. She had not seen the commissions arriving with increasing regularity. She had seen beautiful pieces and had worried about stability. The stability had been in the professional structure she had not been present for. I also want to say something about what the specific skill set of the marketing career had contributed to the ceramics business, and about why the 6 years had not been wasted time in any sense. Marketing had given me the ability to understand how an object communicates to the person who encounters it. This had been directly applicable to the work of building the gallery relationships and the commission practice. I had known how to present the work in a way that communicated what it was. I had known how to build the website in a way that served the work rather than obscuring it. I had known how to have the conversation with a gallery about what the work could do in their space. All of this had come from marketing. The ceramics had not replaced the marketing skills. They had given the marketing skills a different context to operate in. A context where the thing being presented was mine rather than a client's. This had changed everything about what the skills had felt like to use. The same skills had been different in a different context. My mother had seen the ceramics as the abandonment of the marketing capacity. They had been the marketing capacity applied to the right subject. The right subject had made all the difference. The 6 years had been preparation. 6 years of marketing and 4 years of ceramics. 10 years of a professional practice that has been building something the whole time. The 10 years are not 2 separate things. They are one continuous project of understanding what I am for and building the capacity to do it well. Marketing had been phase 1. Ceramics had been the natural extension of what marketing had built. My mother had seen a departure. I had made a continuation. The commission wall and the gallery relationships are the continuation. She is beginning to see the continuation. I want to add something about the specific year that the commission work had grown and about what had changed in year 3 that had allowed the growth. The growth had come from the gallery referral network and from the website that had been rebuilt in year 2 to show the work in the context of how it lived in space rather than as objects on a neutral background. The website change had been the marketing knowledge applied to the ceramics. It had worked. People had begun to understand from the website what the pieces could do in their specific spaces and had reached out to ask if a piece could be made for their specific context. The commission had been the natural result. Year 3 had been the year the marketing knowledge and the ceramic knowledge had found their full integration. I had needed year 1 and year 2 to arrive at year 3. My mother had not been present for year 1 or year 2. She had seen year 3's results without the years that produced them. Year 5 is the year of the large commission. I am already in it. The structural work I had been developing in year 4 is being called upon in year 5. My mother does not yet know what year 5 will produce. She will see it when it is finished. She will come to the show. She will see the object. And because she has stood in the studio and has seen the room where the object comes from, she will see the object differently than she would have before Easter. This is the ongoing gift of the studio visit. All future objects will be seen by someone who has stood in the room where they began. I am glad she stood in it. The Christmas dinner comment had been developing for 4 years. Every major family gathering since I had left marketing had included at least one moment where my mother had said something about my potential, about my gift, about the specific version of my life that she had imagined for me and that the ceramics had replaced. She had said these things with genuine feeling. I do not doubt the feeling. I doubt whether genuine feeling is a sufficient reason for saying something at a Christmas dinner to a boyfriend who had not yet met the family and who had been placed between the roles and the main course into an assessment of the woman he was with that she had not asked for and had not been able to address in the room. Before I go on, if this story I want to say something about Marcus and about what he had given me on the evening of the Christmas dinner and about why the specific structure of his observation had mattered. He had not said your mother is wrong about you in the general sense. He had said something more specific and more useful. He had said, she said that to me because she knew you would not say anything in the moment. This had named the strategy. He had identified that my mother had used his presence at the table as a mechanism for saying the thing she had not been able to say directly to me for 4 years. The naming of the strategy had been clarifying in a way that no amount of his telling me she was wrong about me would have been. Because the issue had not been whether she was wrong about my potential. The issue had been the choice to address the concern through my boyfriend at a Christmas table. He had named the issue precisely. He had also then said the other thing. I want you to know that I see what you have built. I have been watching you build it. The watching had been 18 months of specifics. The gallery calls and the commission negotiations, and the kiln days and the mornings when the work had not come and the afternoons when it had. He had been present for the building. He could speak to it. The speaking had been the seeing. I needed the seeing. I also want to say something about what Marcus had given me in the ongoing sense, and not only on the Christmas evening, and about what 18 months of his specific quality of attention had been. He had been present for the work in the specific way that presence requires. Not as an interested observer, but as someone who had integrated the practice into his understanding of who I was. He had been at the studio on ordinary days. He had seen the work at various stages of completion, and at the stages where it was not yet anything recognizable. He had been present for the failed pieces, which are the majority of the pieces in any practice. The kiln does not produce the gallery piece on every firing. He had known this. He had been present for the ratio. This is the specific thing that distinguishes someone who sees the work from someone who sees the objects. The person who sees the work knows about the ratio. They have been present for both sides of it. They know what the successful piece cost in terms of the pieces that did not succeed, and they honor the cost in how they received the successful piece. My mother had seen the successful pieces. Marcus had seen the ratio. Seeing the ratio is what had allowed him to say, I see what you have built, with the specific accuracy that he had said it. He makes tea and he tells me what he has observed. This is one of the central things about him, and it had been visible on the Christmas evening when he had done exactly this. Tea. Observation. The specific sequence he uses when something has happened that needs honest processing. I had received both. The tea had said, we are not in a hurry. The observation had said, here is what I saw clearly. Together they had been the thing I had needed on the Christmas evening. The tea and the observation. He still makes them the same way. The tea and the observation. This is the sequence he uses, and it has been the right sequence for me. Some people need immediate response. I need the tea first. The signal that there is time and that the thing that has happened will be received without urgency. Then the observation. Here is what I saw clearly. Then the space for me to decide what to do with the seeing. He has understood this about me without my having to explain it. This is one of the things that his presence has given me. Being known in a way that does not require explanation because the knowing has been built from presence. He has been present. The presence has built the knowing. The knowing has produced the tea and the observation at the right moments. I am still receiving it. Connects with something real in your life. Please take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if you genuinely feel it. Drop a comment and tell me where you are watching from and what time it is there. I read every single one. My name is Jade. I am 35 years old. And this is the story of what I said to my mother after the Christmas dinner, and what happened in the conversation that followed, and what changed between us in the 6 months after it. Now let me explain what I want to say something about Portland, and about what having this city as the context for the ceramics practice had given the practice, and about why the location had mattered more than I had initially understood. Portland has a specific relationship with the idea of the made object. The city has a culture of craft that is not marginal or countercultural, but is central to how the city understands itself. The Saturday market and the independent galleries and the specific density of working artists and makers in Portland had given my practice a community it would not have had in a city where the primary professional aspiration was corporate. I had not been alone in making the choice to do the handmade thing full-time. Portland had been full of people making that choice in every medium. The legibility of the choice in Portland had made the choice more sustainable in the specific sense that a thing is more sustainable when the environment around it does not require you to defend it constantly. I had not needed to defend the ceramics in Portland. The defense had been reserved for the Sacramento visits. The Portland community had been the validation that had allowed me to receive the Sacramento critique without it destabilizing the practice. The city had held me. The practice had grown in the holding. For years of growth. I also want to say something about the specific way that Portland had changed what the ceramics could become, and about the difference between year one of full-time making in Portland and what year one might have been in a different city. The craft community here had given me specific things in year one that had not been available in the evenings and weekends period. A ceramic community where technical knowledge was shared readily, the specific networks that had led to the gallery introductions, the specific culture of the city that understood that a handmade ceramic piece was worth what it cost because the person who had bought it in Portland understood what had been required to make it. The buyer culture in Portland is educated and supportive in a specific way. The commission work had grown partly because Portland buyers know how to commission and know what they are asking for and have the patience for the timeline that a commission requires. This specific environment had been the context in which the practice had become what it had become. My mother in Sacramento had not had access to this context. She had seen the results without the context. Easter had given her more of the context. The context had changed the reading. Portland holds the practice. This is what the right city does for the right work. It does not create the work. It creates the conditions in which the work can become what it is. My mother in Sacramento had not had access to the Portland holding. She had needed to come to Portland to see what the holding looked like. Easter had brought her to Portland. Portland had shown her what the practice was in its own environment. The environment had been as legible as the objects. More legible. She had read the environment. The reading had changed the understanding. I want to add something about the specific quality of Portland in the winter, and about how the studio had been the specific antidote to what the Portland winter can otherwise produce. Portland winters are gray and long, and the gray can accumulate in ways that require a specific counter. The studio had been the counter. In the studio in the winter there is the warmth of the kiln and the specific activity of the hands that does not allow the gray to accumulate. Clay requires attention. Attention precludes the accumulation. I had discovered this in my first Portland winter as a full-time maker, and I had understood something about why the choice had been right in a way I had not expected. Not only professionally but constitutionally. The ceramics were right for my constitution. The demand for whole attention had been right for me in every season, but had been most visible in the winter. Portland had shown me this. I am grateful to the gray winters for it. Years had actually been, and about what making ceramics full-time had required and produced, because my mother's assessment of my potential had been based on a specific understanding of what potential looks like and what its appropriate expression is. Potential, in her framework, is the thing you have that allows you to perform well in contexts that reward conventional performance. Careers, credentials, income, the visible markers of professional success. My marketing career had been a performance of potential in her framework. The ceramics had been the replacement of the performance with the actual thing. I know the difference between these two. My mother has not yet been willing to know it. The ceramics had required everything. I want to describe the specific texture of the Christmas dinner table in the moment my mother had said what she had said, and about what had happened in the room after it. Marcus had been sitting to my right. My mother had been across the table. She had said, "I just worry that Jade is not living up to what she could be doing." The room had gone to that specific quiet that a room goes to when something has been said that cannot easily be responded to in public. Marcus had been between the rolls and the main course with nowhere to go. He had looked at his plate. I had looked at my plate. My mother had continued because that is what she does when the room goes quiet after something she has said. She continues in the same tone as though the continuation will soften what has already landed. She had said, "She has always been so gifted and I just wonder." The wondering out loud at the Christmas table about the person sitting at the Christmas table was not an accident. It was the pattern I had been managing for 4 years, finding its most public expression. Marcus had been the specific novelty that had given the pattern a new audience. I had held myself for the rest of the meal. The holding had been a skill I had been developing for 4 years. I had been practicing it at every major family gathering. I had held. The conversation had waited for January. I also want to say something about the 4 years of family dinners before Christmas, and about what the pattern of those dinners had actually been, and why the pattern had not produced the January conversation sooner. At each major gathering my mother had said something about potential. The somethings had varied in their explicitness, but had been recognizably the same comment. At Easter it had been the phrasing of a question about whether the ceramics were sustainable. At Thanksgiving it had been the mention of a former colleague of hers who had an interesting position at a marketing firm. At Christmas 2 years before it had been the comment about stability after the gallery show. Each comment had been individually manageable and collectively had been the pattern that Marcus had finally named on the Christmas evening. She said it to me because she knew you would not say anything in the moment. He had been right. I had been managing in the moment for 4 years. The managing had maintained the peace of the dinners. It had also maintained the pattern. The Christmas table had been the comment that had had an external witness who had had no obligation to manage it. He had not managed it. He had named it. The naming had been the beginning of January. The 4 years of managing in the moment had been the 4 years that had maintained the dinners without producing the change. January had been the change. The change had required stopping the managing. Stopping the managing had required having a witness who had not been obligated to manage, and who had named what he had seen. Marcus had been that witness. The naming had been the gift of the Christmas evening. I had received the gift, and had made the January call. The January conversation had been the result of 4 years of managing, and one Christmas evening with Marcus, who had not been willing to watch me manage without naming what he had seen. He had named it. I had had the conversation. The conversation had been the end of managing and the beginning of the actual relationship with my mother as an adult who requires adult respect rather than ongoing parental assessment of choices already made and not going to be unmade. The adult respect is what I had needed. January had named this. She has been providing more of it since. The more is real. They had required the specific technical knowledge that had taken years to develop and was still developing. They had required the business knowledge to run a studio, maintain gallery relationships, manage commissions, build the online presence that had been essential to the income. They had required the emotional knowledge of being the person whose work is the expression of what is most true in her, and of learning to put that work into the world regularly without the protection of a corporate context that absorbs the risk. I had been doing all of this for 4 years. My mother had attended 2 of my gallery shows. She had said the pieces were beautiful. She had then said, "But I wish you had more stability." The beautiful pieces and the stability had been the same piece to her. They had not been. I want to say something before I go. I want to say something about the January conversation, and about what it had felt like to say the 3 things in order, and about what my mother's responses had been to each one. I had named the first thing, what the Christmas dinner comment had communicated to Marcus, and what it had cost us in the days after when he had needed to ask me whether this family was a place he was welcome. She had been quiet. Then she had said, "I did not realize he would take it that way." I had said, "How did you think he would take it?" She had not had an answer for this. I had moved to the second thing, what the 4 years had contained that she had not been present for. The gallery relationships, the commission income, the technical development that was still ongoing, the specific business knowledge required to run a studio. She had listened. She had said, "I see you working hard." I had said, "I need you to see it as working rather than as the alternative to working." She had been quiet again. Then I had named the third thing, what I needed going forward. Not her approval of the choice. I had stopped needing her approval 3 years ago. What I needed was the basic respect of not relitigating the choice in front of other people. She had said, "I think I have been grieving something." She had said it quietly. I had heard it as the most honest sentence she had said to me about the 4 years. It had been the beginning. I also want to say something about the coffee shop and about the specific choice to have the January conversation there rather than at one of our homes, and about why the neutral space had been the right choice for the conversation I had needed to have. A home carries the specific weight of the relationship it is the home of. My mother's home in Sacramento had carried 35 years of her authority within it. My apartment in Portland had carried the 4 years of the practice she had not been willing to fully receive. Neither home had been the right space for a conversation that needed both of us in an equivalent position. The coffee shop had been neutral, and had put us both at a table with no home authority on either side. I had chosen it deliberately. I had also chosen it because it had a time limit. We were 2 people at a table in a public space, and the conversation would end when it needed to end rather than when one person or the other had the home space authority to end it. The coffee shop had done what I had needed it to do. Held both of us in equivalent positions for the 2 hours. The 2 hours had produced the grief sentence. The grief sentence had produced the beginning of the change. 3 things in order. This had been the structure of the January conversation, and the structure had been the thing that had allowed me to stay in the conversation without losing the thread. When she had become defensive after the first thing, I had moved to the second thing. When she had responded to the second thing with concern rather than defensiveness, I had received the shift and had moved to the third thing. The three things in order structure had produced a conversation that had gone further than any of the previous 4 years of single-point exchanges at dinners. The grief sentence had been the product of the structure. The structure had been worth preparing. I had prepared it. I want to add something about what had happened after I had named the third thing, and about the specific quality of the silence before she had said what she had said about grief. I had named the third thing. Not approval but basic respect, the not relitigating of the choice in front of other people. She had been quiet for longer than the previous 2 quiets. The third quiet had been different. The first 2 quiets had been the quiet of someone receiving a criticism and deciding how to respond. The third quiet had been the quiet of someone arriving somewhere they had not been yet. I had waited in the quiet and had not filled it. I had let it last as long as it needed to last. She had said, "I think I have been grieving the version of your life I imagined." The third quiet had been where the grief sentence had been forming. I am glad I had not filled the quiet. The quiet had needed the space. The grief sentence had come from the space. The grief sentence had been available to her for 4 years and had not had the space to be said. January had made the space. 3 things in order had made the space. The third quiet had been the space. I am glad I had made the 3 things and the order and the quiet. Each had been necessary for the grief sentence to have a place to arrive. It had arrived. I had received it. We had gone on from the receiving. Not about the conversation after Christmas dinner, but about what my boyfriend Marcus had said to me that evening after we had gotten home. We had been quiet in the car. He had let us be quiet for the 20 minutes it had taken to get back to my apartment. He had made tea. He had sat across from me with his own tea, and he had said, "I want to tell you what I saw at the table tonight." He had then described what he had observed from his position between the rolls and the main course. My mother's tone, the way the room had gone quiet, the way I had held myself for the rest of the meal. He had said, "She said that to me because she knew you would not say anything in the moment." He had said, "She used me as the audience for something she did not have the courage to say directly to you." He had then said the most important thing. He had said, "I want you to know that I see what you have built. I have been watching you build it. What you are doing is not a lesser version of your potential. It is your potential." I had heard this. I had needed to hear it. He had given it without being asked. Thank you for staying until the end. I want to end with something about the ceramics and about what 4 years of full-time making has given me, and about why I would make the same decision again from any point in the 6 years before it. The marketing career had been a good career. It had given me what it could give. The ceramics have given me the thing I have been trying to name for 4 years, and that I can now name more clearly. The specific experience of spending the majority of my working hours in the activity that produces the thing that is most mine. Not mine in the proprietary sense. Mine in the sense of being the expression of what is most specifically true about how I see form and weight and surface. Each piece I make is a record of what I understood at the time I made it. The accumulation of pieces over 4 years is a record of what I have been understanding. I look back at the first-year pieces and I see what I was learning. I look at the current work and I see what I have learned and what I am still learning. This is not a stable income in the sense my mother meant. It is a different kind of stability. The stability of a practice that grows through the sustained attention you give it. I have given it 4 years of sustained attention. It has grown. My mother came to the studio and saw what 4 years of sustained attention looks like. She said, "It looks like a business." I said, "It is. It is also more than that. It is the room where I am most myself. That is not nothing. It is the whole thing. It is what I chose." I also want to end with something about the practice itself, and about what making ceramics full-time for 4 years has shown me about the nature of sustained attention, and about why I believe the choice was also the right choice for me as a person rather than only as a professional. Ceramics requires a quality of attention that is not divisible. You cannot split your attention when you are working clay. The clay demands the whole of you at the wheel, or it tells you. This quality of demanded whole attention had been one of the things I had needed most in the period after leaving marketing, and I had not known I needed it until the practice had given it to me. The specific experience of being fully present to the thing you are doing for the hours you are doing it is one that is available in many practices, but that had not been available to me in the specific demands of the marketing work. Marketing had required split attention, multiple accounts, multiple deadlines, multiple competing priorities. Ceramics required the singular attention. The singular attention had been a gift I had not known I was giving myself when I had made the plan to leave. It is the gift that the 4 years has given me most consistently. My mother saw the studio and said it looks like a business. It is a business. It is also the room where I give myself the singular attention for the hours that matter. This is not a lesser thing. This is the whole thing. The room where I am most myself. I return to this phrasing because it is the most accurate one I have for what the studio is. Not the room where I work. The room where I am most myself. My mother came to that room on Easter. She stood in it. She read the brief on the wall. She said, "It looks like a business." And then she was quiet in the specific way of someone who is taking in something that has required 4 years to be ready to take in. I had waited 4 years for her to stand in that room. She had stood in it. Something had been received. The receiving had been the beginning of the thing I had needed. I am patient now. The room is mine. She has seen it. We go on from the seeing. I want to end with something about what the practice has become in its 4th year, and about what year 5 is beginning to show me it will be. The practice has a direction now that the early years had been building toward. The direction is toward larger pieces, and toward the specific kind of commissioned work that asks more of the maker in terms of scale and structural thinking. I have been learning the structural thinking in year 4. Year 5 will have the first large commission that requires it. I am ready for the commission in the way that I am ready for each next thing the practice brings, with the specific combination of preparedness and openness to what the commission will teach me that the preparedness alone cannot anticipate. This is the ongoing quality of the practice. It keeps asking. I keep answering. My mother came to the studio and saw the asking and the answering both. She said, "It looks like a business." I said, "It is." It is also the ongoing conversation between me and what I am learning to do. The conversation is still going. It always will be. The room is mine. The practice is mine. She has seen it. Marcus has seen it from the beginning. I see it every day from the inside. The 3 kinds of seeing together are what the 4 years have produced. The 4 years have been worth every part of what they cost. Year 5 has begun. If this story made you feel something, write it in the comments. I read every single one. And if you want to hear what I finally said to my mother in January, sitting across from her at a coffee shop with no one else at the table, and what she said when I told her exactly what her comment at Christmas dinner had cost Marcus and me, and what it had communicated about whether she trusted my judgment, and what happened at Easter 6 months later when she came to the studio for the first time. That story is waiting for you in the description below. Click it. Until next time, take care of yourselves. And if someone in your life has been using your achievements as evidence of something you are failing to do, I want you to know, the achievement is not the evidence they are using it as. The work is the work. Marcus saw it. Some people see it. The ones who see it are the ones you turn toward. I want to tell you more about what the ceramics had become in the 4 years, and about why full-time making had been a different thing from what the evenings and weekends had been. When I had been making ceramics in the evenings and on weekends, the making had been in relationship with exhaustion. I had come to the studio after the marketing workday, and I had had 2 or 3 hours, and I had used them. The work had been good. It had also been work made under constraint. Constrained time, constrained energy, the specific limitation of making something that required full attention in the hours when full attention had already been given to something else. I had not known what the work could be under different conditions until I had created the different conditions. Full-time making had shown me what the work was when it had the full day. It had shown me that the ceramics were not a hobby that had gotten large but a practice that had been waiting for adequate space. The pieces I made in the first year of full-time work had been different from the pieces I had made in the evenings. Not better in a linear sense. Different in the specific sense that things are different when they have been given the conditions they actually need. I had known this immediately. I had known it in the way you know something that has been true for a long time, and that has finally been given the space to be visible. My mother had come to the first gallery show 8 months into the full-time work and had said the pieces were beautiful, and had then said, "But I worry about the stability." She had been looking at the pieces while she had been worrying about the stability. The pieces had been the stability she had been looking at. She had not been able to see this yet. I want to say something about Easter and about what had happened when my mother had come to the studio for the first time, and about what the studio had shown her that the gallery shows had not. She had arrived on a Saturday morning in April. I had not cleaned the studio beyond its normal state, because the normal state of the studio had been the thing I had wanted her to see. A clean studio is a gallery. A working studio is a working studio. The difference had been what mattered. She had walked in and had stopped. She had looked at the pieces in various stages. The raw clay works waiting for the first firing, the bisqued pieces waiting for glazing, the finished pieces waiting for their commission delivery. She had looked at the tools. She had looked at the kiln. She had looked at the wall where I had pinned the reference images for the current commission alongside the commission brief and the color studies. She had been quiet for a long time. She had then said, "I did not know what all of this looked like." I had said, "No." She had said, "It looks like a business." I had said, "It is a business." She had walked slowly through the studio. She had touched nothing but had looked at everything. She had stopped at the commission wall. She had read the brief. She had looked at the color studies. She had said, "This is how you work." I had said, "Yes." She had been taking in something she had not been able to take in before. The studio had given her the picture that the gallery shows could not. I also want to say something about what Easter had been in the broader sense of what had happened before the studio visit and about the quality of the day that had surrounded it. We had had Easter brunch first. The brunch had been different from the previous Easters in a specific way. She had not said anything about potential. This had been the first major family event in 4 years at which the comment had not been made. I had noticed the absence. Marcus had noticed it too. He had looked at me across the table at a moment when the comment's usual window had passed, and she had said nothing, and I had looked back, and we had both known what the other had noticed. The noticing without speaking is the specific quality of a relationship that has developed its own language. After brunch I had said, "Do you want to come see the studio?" She had said yes without hesitating. She had been ready to see it. The January conversation had made her ready. The readiness had produced the yes. We had driven to the studio. She had walked in and had stopped. She had read the commission brief. She had said, "It looks like a business." I had said, "It is." This is the sentence we had needed to arrive at together. She said, "It looks like a business." I had been waiting for her to see it as a business for 4 years. Not as a passion project. Not as a risk. As a business. The studio had given her the evidence for the business assessment. The brief and the studies and the kiln and the delivery schedule. She had read the evidence and had produced the accurate assessment. I had said, "It is." I had not said anything else. The sentence had not needed anything else. She had said the true thing. I had confirmed it. We had stood together in the studio for a moment in the specific quiet of a thing that had been said and received accurately for the first time. The studio had also given her the sense of what the work cost in terms of the accumulated knowledge and equipment and organized practice that had produced it. The kiln is not cheap. The studio rent is real. The tools on the wall represent years of accumulation. She had walked through the space and had been in the presence of the accumulated cost of the practice and the accumulated capacity that the cost had produced. The two things together had shown her something the gallery objects alone had not shown her. This is a person who has invested seriously in a practice and whose practice has returned the investment in specific and growing ways. She had seen this. She had named it. It looks like a business. I had confirmed it. The business had been there the whole time. She had needed the studio to see it. I want to say something about what has changed between my mother and me in the 6 months since January, and about what the Easter studio visit had produced specifically. She has not said anything about potential at a family gathering since January. This is a specific change, and I want to name it specifically because the 4 years before January had included at least one such comment at every major family event. The absence of the comment has been the evidence that something had shifted. She had asked me at the most recent family dinner how the current commission was going. She had asked with the specific tone of someone who has some understanding of what a commission is and what it requires. She had not had that understanding before Easter. The studio visit had given her the framework for asking the question she had asked. I had told her about the commission. She had listened with the quality of attention that indicates someone is actually receiving what you are saying rather than waiting to express their concern about it. This had been a different dinner than the ones before January. We are not at the end of something. We are in a different beginning. The grief she had named in January has not resolved. She is still in it, but she is in it with more of the actual picture. The actual picture has changed the grief. I also want to say something about the specific nature of the change in my mother, and about what I think it has required of her to make the change, and about why I receive it as a real change rather than as a temporary accommodation. The change had required her to revise a specific understanding of what a good life for her daughter looks like. This is not a small revision. It is the revision of something she had been building since before I had been able to have preferences of my own. The version of my life she had imagined had been the product of her own understanding of what success is and what stability is and what the appropriate use of a specific kind of intelligence looks like. Revising that understanding had required her to see that her framework for these things had been built from her own experience, and had not accounted for the possibility that there were ways of building a good life that her framework did not contain. The studio had shown her one of those ways. The commission brief on the wall had shown her. The kiln had shown her. The organized disorder of a working practice had shown her something that the gallery objects had not been able to show her through their beauty alone. She had seen it. She is revising. I am watching the revision happen. I am patient with it. The revision is not the completion. She has not arrived at a full understanding of why the ceramics had been the right choice in the way that I understand it. She is approaching the understanding from the outside through the evidence she has been accumulating. The evidence is accumulating. The gallery show objects and the commission wall, and the recent dinner question about the commission. Each piece of evidence adds to the picture. She is building the picture from the outside in. I am patient with the direction. The direction is toward the picture. The picture is worth the patience. She is building it. I want to add something about the Easter brunch before the studio visit, and about what the absent comment had meant in the context of the whole day. The Easter brunch without the comment had been a 4-course demonstration that the January conversation had changed something real. Not a complete change. A real one. She had sat through the windows where the comment usually appeared and had said other things. She had asked Marcus about his work. She had talked to my father about their trip planned for the fall. She had talked to me about a podcast she had been listening to. Ordinary things. The ordinary things had been extraordinary specifically because they had been the ordinary things and not the comment. The absence of the comment had been as loud as any comment she had made in the previous 4 years. Marcus had heard it. I had heard it. After brunch I had said, "Do you want to see the studio?" The yes had been immediate. I want to say something about what Marcus had said after Easter when I had told him about the studio visit, and about my mother reading the commission brief, and about what she had said when she had seen the kiln for the first time. Marcus had listened to the whole account and had then said, she needed to see the room. He had said, everything that was abstract to her about what you do was in that room. He had said, she could not understand the work from the finished objects. She needed to see where the objects come from. I had thought about this. It had been accurate. My mother had been responding to the objects in the galleries with the framework she had brought to them. Beautiful but unstable. The studio had shown her the framework the objects had come from. The brief, the studies, the kiln, the organized work of someone who knows what she is doing. The framework had changed how she read the objects. Marcus had seen this before Easter. He had understood what the studio visit would do before it had done it. He had not suggested it. He had let me arrive at it. This is one of the things about him. He sees what is needed and he trusts that I will arrive at the same seeing. He does not manage me toward the right conclusion. He makes tea, and he tells me what he has observed, and he trusts the rest to me. I trust the rest to me too. The studio visit had been the right next thing. I had arrived at it. I also want to say something about what Marcus had said about the grief, and about why his framing of my mother's behavior had been more useful than my own framing in the months before Christmas. I had been framing her behavior as a failure to accept my choice. He had heard my accounts of the dinners and the gallery show comments and the stability concerns, and he had said once, early in our relationship, she might be mourning something. I had heard this and had filed it without fully taking it in. After January, when she had said the grief sentence, I had remembered his word mourning. He had named it a year before she had named it herself. He had seen it in the accounts I had given him. He had not pushed the framing. He had offered it once and let me do what I needed to do with it. I had not been ready to receive it when he had offered it. After January I had received it. The receiving had changed what I understood about the previous 4 years, and about why the grief sentence had mattered more than the acknowledgments that had preceded it. She had finally named the real thing. The real thing had always been the grief. Everything else had been the grief dressed differently. He had named the mourning a year before she had named it herself. This is the specific quality of seeing that he has. He had not needed her to confirm what he had observed. He had observed it and had offered it once and had let it be available when I was ready. This is how he operates with the things he sees. He does not insist. He offers and trusts. I had not been ready in that earlier moment. After January I had been ready. I had taken what he had offered, and it had fit exactly where it needed to fit. He had known it would. He had waited. He was right. He sees what is needed, and he trusts that I will arrive at it. This is the specific quality of respect that his presence has given me, and it is the quality that is most different from what my mother had been giving me in the 4 years before January. She had been seeing what she believed was needed, and had been saying it at the dinner table because she had not trusted that I would arrive at it on my own. He sees what is needed and he trusts the arriving. The trust is the difference. The trust is what allows the relationship between us to be what it is. He had seen the mourning in my mother before she had named it. He had not told me she was mourning in a way that managed me toward a specific response. He had offered it once and had trusted the arriving. I had arrived at it. After January. He had known I would. He always does. I want to say something about what the ceramics studio in Portland had given me and about why this city had been the right place for this work. Portland has a specific relationship with the made object. The city has a culture of craft and of the independent artist that is different from the culture of cities where the primary professional aspiration is corporate. There are people in Portland who are doing what I am doing in every medium. The community of makers here is not a subculture. It is part of the culture. I had needed to be in a place where my choice to make ceramics full-time was legible as a professional choice, rather than as an eccentricity or a risk or a phase. Portland had given me the legibility. The two galleries that carry my work are Portland galleries. The commission network that had grown in the last 18 months had grown partly because Portland has people who understand what they are buying when they buy a handmade ceramic piece, and who want the specific thing that the handmade piece is rather than a less expensive alternative. My mother lives in Sacramento. She visits twice a year. She has been to 2 gallery shows. She had not been to the studio until Easter. The studio is the place where the work is made and where its nature is most visible. The tools, the clay, the pieces in various stages, the kiln, the specific organized disorder of a working space. When she had come to the Christmas dinner, she had been working from an idea of my work that had been assembled from the gallery shows, and from my descriptions, and from the general framework of ceramics, as an artistic pursuit. She had not been working from the specific knowledge of what a working studio is and what the full-time making of the objects in those galleries requires. Easter had changed some of this. I want to say something about Marcus and about what he had given me not only on the Christmas evening, but in the 6 months after it, and about what it meant to have someone who had been present for the work and who could speak to it from that presence. Marcus and I had been together for 18 months at Christmas. He had been to the studio. He had watched me work. He had understood the work from the inside in the specific sense that someone who has watched a person make something over time understands it, not as an idea but as a practice with specific demands and specific rewards. He had been able to say, "I see what you have built." He had been able to say this because he had seen it. He had been in the studio on the mornings when the work had been difficult, and on the evenings when a piece had come together, and on the days when a commission had arrived that had confirmed that the work was reaching people. He had the evidence. He had cited the evidence. This is what it means to be seen accurately. Someone has the evidence and they cite it, and the citing is the seeing. I want to say something about the January coffee shop conversation with my mother, and about what I had prepared to say, and what had actually happened. I had told her I needed to talk to her. I had said this clearly and without softening. She had heard the clarity and had agreed to the coffee. I had sat down across from her with my coffee, and I had told her 3 things in order. First, what the Christmas dinner comment had communicated to Marcus, and what it had cost us in the specific sense of having made him doubt whether this family was a place he was welcome. Second, what the 4 years had contained that she had not been present for, the technical development, the business work, the gallery relationships, the growing commission income, and what the absence of acknowledgement of this work had communicated. Third, what I needed from her going forward, which was not her approval of my choice, but the basic respect of not relitigating the choice in front of other people. She had been quiet for a long time after I had finished. She had said, "I did not know he had felt that way." She had said, "I did not realize I had been doing this repeatedly." She had then said something I had not expected. She had said, "I think I have been grieving the version of your life I had imagined." She had said, "I have not done this gracefully." This had been the most honest thing she had said to me about the 4 years. The grief had been real. The ungraceful management of the grief had also been real. Both had been true simultaneously. I had been able to hear both.